What if I told you that the name that held the power of creation itself and was the most sacred name in the universe had been hidden from people for hundreds of years? Not lost, not forgotten, but on purpose kept quiet, only spoken in the quietest parts of old monasteries. As the world outside quiets down and darkness falls around you, let your mind drift with me to a time when knowledge was fragile, sacred, and full of mystery. This is the story of the Ethiopian Bible and the hidden meanings of God's name. It's a story that not many people have heard, but it still lives on in the quiet whispers of the past. There was a time when people were quiet. This was long before empires spread across continents and translations changed holy texts. The high mountains and hidden valleys of Ethiopia became a safe place for knowledge that others would try to erase. Monks who worked by candlelight on old parchments spent their lives copying texts, not for fame or power, but because they thought some names and knowledge were too sacred to be spoken aloud carelessly. Picture a night so quiet that the flicker of a candle feels like a holy heartbeat, and every movement of the hand across parchment is a prayer, a promise to keep what must not be forgotten. The scribes knew how important every word was in the middle of these monasteries, where the smell of old books and the sound of wind through stone corridors were always present. Every letter was important. Each stroke of ink held hundreds of years of love. And hidden among those letters was the most powerful name of all, a name that could only be spoken with respect. The Hebrew scribes had written it down as YHWH, a name that was known but not spoken, a name that needed respect and silence. It wasn't superstition that made people afraid of using that name wrong. It was a profound comprehension of the sacred. Angels also knew how powerful names were. The Book of Enoch, which is very old and was kept in Ethiopia while it was lost in other places, says that the Watchers, powerful angels, knew secret names. They knew that words had power and that saying a name without thinking could change reality. So, the people who were given this sacred knowledge learned to value silence and let their hearts remember what their lips couldn't say. Picture yourself sitting next to a small, flickering lamp and listening to the monks chant softly, their voices barely rising above the stillness of the night. Every syllable was a link between heaven and earth, and every pause was a reminder that some things are too sacred for the average person to hear. God's names weren't just letters. They were living things that created the world, kept it going, and held the universe together. And yet, for hundreds of years, people walked on the earth without really knowing them, only hearing the echoes, the shadows, and the quiet respect in hidden halls. The world outside of Ethiopia changed over the years. Empires came and went. Languages changed. The holy books changed from Hebrew to Greek, and then from Greek to Latin. And in these translations, the most holy names started to fade from memory. YHWH became Lord, and Elohim became God. These names replaced the closeness of a name. What had once been a real, living identity became a faraway idea, a title that could be read aloud without feeling the weight it once had. Still, the scribes in Ethiopia kept watch. In secret monasteries and highlands, the name was never spoken, keeping it as sacred as it always had been. And tonight, as you listen to this story, know that we are not just going back in time. We are going into a calm and reflective space. Let your mind rest with the idea that some knowledge was kept secret, not to keep the truth from you, but to honor it and remind you that not all power should be spoken of lightly. The mountains of Ethiopia held secrets. The scribes held devotion, and the night was sacredly still for thousands of years. Before we go any further into this story, I want to gently introduce you to our little sanctuary here, Late Night Devotion. We share the lost knowledge of the Bible on this channel, mysteries, secrets, and truths that have been kept from the world for a long time. If this story moves you, and you feel calm and curious tonight, please share this video with your friends to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. And while you do, please leave a comment with your name, the city where you are watching, and the time you are watching this story. We will discover the secrets together, and this story is the start of your journey tonight. Now that the candlelight is flickering and the mountains of Ethiopia are whispering in memory, Let's step softly into the past, where sacred names were respected, knowledge was protected, and a quiet devotion held the world together. Let's listen with our hearts, and not just our ears, because the story of the Ethiopian Bible's hidden secrets is about to begin. Ethiopia stood quietly in the highlands, a land both rugged and peaceful, long before the great empires of the world stretched their borders across deserts, mountains, and rivers. Long before the powerful kings and councils changed texts and languages. More than just stone, its mountains held ancient secrets. Monasteries were hidden in valleys, and inside them, scribes spent their whole lives keeping sacred knowledge safe, the kind of knowledge that many people would later forget or rewrite. Picture how quiet it was in the early mornings, with the air crisp from the mountain winds and the soft rustle of parchment as hands traced the letters of holy words. Each stroke was a prayer, and each line was a promise to protect the truth. In these remote areas, the scribes were more than just copyists. They were protectors of things that couldn't be said out loud. Back then, knowledge was weak, like the thin sheets of parchment that held it. Each letter was carefully made, and each symbol was exactly right, because these weren't just words, they were vessels of holy power. And in the middle of all this devotion, people treated the names of God with a respect that most people outside of this group couldn't understand. People thought it was rude and dangerous to mispronounce or say these names too freely, because they had a power that changed reality itself. Ethiopia's geography was perfect for this quiet preservation. Tall mountains kept people apart, and deep valleys served as natural libraries. As the wind whistled through narrow passes and softly echoed across monasteries, it seemed like nature was reminding the scribes of the holy duty they had. Not many people from outside would go there, and even fewer would understand what they saw. In these monasteries, life moved slowly, with the sun rising and setting, prayers being said, and texts being carefully copied. It was a life of waiting and thinking, far away from the noise of the outside world. The scribes' knowledge went beyond letters and ink within these holy walls. They knew the stories of angels and the heavens, as well as the watchers who had come down to help and sometimes trick people. They read books that the rest of the world had lost, like the Book of Enoch, which kept ancient truths about the guardians of divine knowledge and what happens when people are curious. For them, God's names were not just ideas. They were real, living links to the creation itself. They wrote, memorized, and whispered softly in the still of night to make sure that these holy truths would live on. It wasn't a life of fame or luxury. There were no royal courts, no fancy libraries, and no one to clap for the hard work of these quiet guardians. But in the quiet and the careful rhythm of their days, they did something amazing. They kept knowledge alive that might have otherwise been lost forever. Every copied scroll and every memorized line became a bridge across time, linking the first revelations to people who would read and listen to them hundreds of years later. It seemed like the mountains themselves were protecting this knowledge from the forces that wanted to make it simpler or erase it. Long before translations started to change holy texts, before empires grew and councils met, Ethiopia's remote monasteries stayed strong. Here, knowledge was not changed for political gain or ease. The names of God were still holy here, and they were never changed in their full form, even though many people didn't know what they meant. It was a holy trust that was passed down from one generation of monks to the next, a whisper of eternity that went through hands and hearts. As you listen to this story tonight, picture yourself walking quietly down these old halls, with candlelight flickering on the walls and the smell of old parchment in the air. You can hear the faint echoes of monks chanting, and their voices mix with the wind outside. Every careful stroke of ink carries the weight of centuries, the devotion of those who knew that some knowledge was too valuable to be shared carelessly. This is the Ethiopia that time and empires couldn't fully touch. It kept secrets in silence, waiting for those who would one day look for them again. In this peaceful place, you start to see why the Ethiopian Bible is different from other versions. It is not just a collection of texts, It is a place of memory and respect, a careful preservation of knowledge that others may have feared, forgotten, or changed on purpose. It holds the wisdom of many generations who knew that what is sacred doesn't always have to be loud or well known. Some truths are best kept in quiet, stillness, and the safe embrace of devotion. As you get more into this story, let your thoughts drift with the monks over mountains and through time. Feel the quiet devotion that kept names too sacred to be spoken alive. The rhythm of their chants, the slow turning of the parchment, and the wind's echo can all help you think calmly about the mysteries that remain when silence is respected. Tonight, we continue to follow the path of these holy names and the guardians who protected them. We step softly into a world where knowledge was kept safe with patience, care, and unwavering devotion. The sacred scrolls rested in peace in the valleys of Ethiopia, where clouds drifted lazily over sharp peaks and the sun's light barely touched the stone walls of hidden monasteries. These scrolls were not normal texts. Each line and letter was heavy with the weight of centuries, the devotion of monks, and the whispers of a divine mystery that few could understand. Picture yourself in a place like this, where the cool mountain air brushes your face and the silence is so deep that it almost hums. This silence holds knowledge that is older than any empire or king. The monks who took care of these scrolls lived simple lives. Their days started before dawn, and their mornings were full of quiet prayers and taking care of the lamps that lit up their manuscripts. Every scroll was seen as a living thing, a holy friend to the soul. The ink, which was carefully made from natural dyes, held not only words but also meaning. Each stroke was planned, like a meditation that linked the human hand to the divine. And when night fell, these same hands would carefully roll up the scrolls, put them back in their wooden cases, and say a silent prayer for protection. The Ethiopian Bible kept texts that had been lost in other places in these secret libraries, which were carved into the mountains themselves. The Book of Enoch, the Jubilees, and other old books stayed safe because of geography, devotion, and the careful watch of people who knew what was sacred. In cities, people could ask for, copy, or change knowledge, but these scrolls were safe from the outside world. People who didn't have respect or patience couldn't get to them, even though they were right there. Imagine how your footsteps sound softly as you walk between the shelves, how the cool stone and the faint smell of parchment mix, and how the warm candlelight makes gentle shadows on the walls. It's a place where time seems to slow down. Not only did each scroll have words, but they also had a purpose. The scribes who copied them really believed that these texts could help people, warn them, and connect them with God. They were careful to copy every line exactly as it was written, without changing or interpreting it. They knew that even one wrong word could throw off the balance of the sacred knowledge inside. So, with time and dedication, the mountains became protectors, the scrolls became vessels of eternity, and the monks became invisible bridges between heaven and earth. Within these monasteries, the meaning of holy names became very deep. The scrolls kept the names of God safe from the outside world by keeping them in the same order and with the same accuracy. Each letter was important, each sign was a prayer. When you touched a scroll, you were touching hundreds of years of devotion. When you read it, you could feel the presence of people who had given their lives to protect what others had long since forgotten. Picture a monk unrolling a scroll and the soft rustle of parchment. The flickering candlelight shows words that have survived the test of time, each one vibrating softly with respect. But it wasn't just the names of God that were kept safe. It was also the knowledge of angels, divine counsels, and forbidden wisdom that most people had lost. The Ethiopian scribes knew how important this information was. They knew it wasn't for fame, power, or just being curious. It was to be kept quiet, and treated with a respect that would last for generations. Picture the monks leaning over these scrolls, tracing lines with their delicate fingers and speaking soft prayers, as if they were talking to the ink itself and not saying the words that had the power to create. It seemed like the mountains were part of this protection. Cold winds and sharp rocks made natural walls that only those who were patient and respectful could cross to get to the hidden places of worship. Time moved differently here. The outside world felt far away, and the scrolls stayed safe from the pressures and distractions of empires, translations, or political ambition as the days went by. The mountains seemed to say, "Here, knowledge is sacred. Here, secrets are safe." As you listen tonight, picture yourself in these mountains. Feel the cool stone under your fingers, the faint sound of old parchment rustling, and the soft light of candles dancing on the walls. Listen to the monks' whispers mixing with the wind, a soft symphony of devotion. Know that these scrolls were more than just books. They were lifelines, vessels that carried divine knowledge across centuries, silently defying the passage of time and the pressures of the outside world. The Ethiopian Bible stayed whole in this space, with its holy names and wisdom still intact. The scrolls became a bridge across time because of the devotion of those who knew how valuable they were. They held secrets, truths, and divine guidance, waiting patiently for those who would listen, respect the silence, and let the story unfold slowly in their hearts. As the mountains hold the scrolls and the monks hold the knowledge, we quietly enter the story of the names, the angels, and the wisdom that has lasted for hundreds of years. Some knowledge is protected not by force, but by devotion, patience, and the gentle hands of those who understood how sacred it was. Let your mind rest with this thought. We continue our journey tonight, letting the scrolls take us deeper into the mysteries of the Ethiopian Bible, into secrets that have been kept quiet, and into the quiet power of holy names. There was a secret so deep in the Ethiopian monasteries that it couldn't be spoken aloud. It was hidden in the flickering candlelight and the soft shadows of the old stone walls. The name of God, which contained the essence of creation, was only whispered in the heart and never fully spoken by human lips. Picture the soft rustle of a monk's robe as he walks up to a scroll, the delicate movement of his fingers as they trace the letters, and the silence that fills the room, as if the air itself knows how holy it is. This is a name that people only say in silence, and it is respected, protected, and alive in its quiet presence. Long before translations and titles changed holy texts, the Hebrew people knew how powerful names were. The Tetragrammaton, YHWH, was more than just a word. It was a living sound that linked people to God. It was thought to be dangerous to say it carelessly because it broke the harmony between the living and the dead. And so, for generations, people learned to respect it in silence. They would think about what it meant, think about its presence, and let it guide their hearts. But they wouldn't say it out loud. Every unspoken syllable turned into a prayer, and every moment of quiet thought was an act of devotion. The monks of Ethiopia kept this tradition going with unwavering dedication. They kept the holy text safe, making sure that the names of God stayed the same. And they taught the faithful how important it is to hold back. The silence here was not empty. It was full of life, respect, and a bond that few people outside these walls could understand. Think about how much history is tied to one name, a name that has lived through the rise and fall of empires, translations that tried to make things easier, and changes in the outside world. And yet, it stayed alive in the ink, the parchment, and the hearts of those who honored it. The quiet around the holy name wasn't a wall, it was a bridge. It was a way for people to humbly come to God and understand how powerful words could be. The monks taught that some knowledge is not diminished when unspoken. Rather, it grows stronger, deeper, and more profound. They did this by lighting candles, turning parchment softly, and praying quietly. It's a truth that you feel instead of hear, and understand instead of read out loud. But this name meant more than respect. It had history, power, and the sound of angels. The book of Enoch talks about the watchers, who knew how powerful names were. They understood that the holy could not be used carelessly. People were also given this knowledge and told to protect the divine from being misused. In Ethiopia, this duty was carried out with great care. The scribes and monks took care of every letter, because they knew that changing the sacred order of the name would change the balance of faith itself. Picture yourself sitting quietly in one of these monasteries, with the cool stone under your fingers, the faint smell of old parchment in the air, and the soft light of a single lamp casting soft shadows on the walls. You can almost hear the quiet heartbeat of devotion that has been here for centuries, the patience and care that have kept these names alive. Every monk, every scroll, and every whispered prayer adds to a rhythm that is both timeless and personal, a rhythm that connects the listener, the sacred text, and the divine. The Ethiopian Bible kept more than just words in this holy silence. It kept a spiritual experience. It kept the link between people and God strong, even when translations in other countries changed names to titles. Yes, the words Lord, God, and Elohim showed authority, but only here, in silence, in devotion, and in the careful hands of those who understood. The weight of the unspoken was the intimacy of the original names and the vibrancy of their sacred essence preserved. And so, as we move on with our journey tonight, let's think about how powerful these names are. Let's feel the patience of those who have protected them, the respect that has kept them alive through hundreds of years of change, and the closeness that comes from not being able to talk about something that is too sacred. The name is not on the lips, but in the heart. It is alive in the quiet places, the candlelit rooms, and the mountains that protect these monasteries. And it waits for us to hear it, not with our ears, but with our hearts, as we learn more about the mysteries of the Ethiopian Bible. In this world, silence is not empty. It is a safe place. Unspoken words mean more than any spoken declaration. The sacred is not protected by noise or declaration, but by careful devotion, patience, and love. As you let this story take you away tonight, think about the hundreds of years of silence, the devoted hands of monks, and the living presence of a name that you have to feel to understand. The trip has just begun. As we move forward, we will look at how these holy names were kept safe, how they changed the wisdom in the Ethiopian Bible, and how silence itself became a way to keep things safe, a quiet protest against loss, forgetfulness, and simplification. Tonight, in this peaceful and thoughtful place, let yourself slowly enter the world of sacred names, hidden knowledge, and devotion that has lasted through the years. The monks moved slowly and carefully in Ethiopia's old monasteries, where candlelight flickered on walls covered in sacred scrolls. Every step, breath, and movement had meaning. They weren't just protecting texts, they were protecting something much more fragile and important, the holiness of what had been given to them. Picture yourself standing there, feeling the cool air of the stone corridors, hearing the soft echo of footsteps, and knowing that even a careless word could upset the balance of devotion and divine order. It wasn't superstition that made people afraid of misusing the holy. It came from respect. The holy names, the teachings, and the divine wisdom all had power. If you talk carelessly, misunderstand, or twist these words, you could face consequences that aren't obvious. The monks were aware of this. They knew that every line of scripture, every holy name, and every teaching in the Ethiopian Bible was a part of the complex pattern of God's will. So, they worked with an amazing amount of patience, showing their dedication not only to God, but also to the trust that had been placed in them. The watchers in the book of Enoch said that even angels knew how powerful names and knowledge were. These beings, who had once come down to watch over and guide people, knew that wisdom came with a lot of responsibility. Some had faltered because of curiosity or pride, and when they did, the world saw what happened. The monks didn't think of these stories as old myths. They thought of them as lessons that were still going on. To misuse knowledge and speak lightly of the sacred was to put the fragile balance that held the spiritual and material worlds together in danger. Think about how heavy that kind of responsibility must be on a person's heart, as if every choice had an echo of forever. In this peaceful, thoughtful setting, the fear of misusing the holy was mixed with a deep love. The monks handled each scroll with steady, respectful hands and soft, watchful eyes. They said prayers over their work in a low voice, knowing that silence could be a form of protection. People didn't hide the sacred texts to keep people from learning. They kept them safe because they trusted them, were patient, and understood that some truths are too fragile to be shared carelessly. Picture yourself opening a scroll in the light of a flickering candle. The letters shine softly against the parchment, and the air feels full of respect. Every word has life. It carries meaning and purpose. The names of God, even though they are not spoken out loud, have a quiet power that reminds people who read and memorize them how serious holiness is. The monks knew how powerful this was, so they moved slowly, reading, copying, and praying, each action a way to think about how important their job was. Because of this careful respect, the Ethiopian Bible survived while a lot of other knowledge was lost. Some places may have made texts easier to read, changed names to titles, or changed meanings to make things easier, but the mountains and monasteries of Ethiopia stayed the same. The fear of misusing the holy was not a limit. It was a protective embrace, a gentle line that kept wisdom safe. In this way, devotion and fear were linked, each one making the other stronger. This created a safe place for knowledge that was both spiritual and intellectual. As the night gets darker in your own world tonight, picture the soft rustle of parchment under careful hands, the soft glow of candlelight on old letters, and the quiet prayers that go along with each careful movement. Feel the patience, responsibility, and awe that have kept these texts alive for hundreds of years. People who were afraid of misusing the holy didn't feel like they had to do it. They were devoted to it and kept sacred knowledge safe for generations to come. As we get deeper into this story, we start to see how knowledge and restraint work together. Some truths are too strong to be treated lightly. There are some names that should never be spoken out loud. Some wisdom is kept safe not by telling people about it, but by being a careful and loving guardian. The monks of Ethiopia understood this very well. Their patience, respect, and devotion have helped us see the holy secrets that are hidden in the Ethiopian Bible. As you sleep tonight, let your mind wander through these old monasteries. Think about how heavy the sacred is in every movement, how alive the texts are in every line, and how quiet devotion has kept them alive for hundreds of years. Fear of misusing the holy is not fear of God, it is love for God, shown through silence, care, and a steady heart. This silence protects the sacred, keeps the knowledge alive, and keeps the mystery alive, inviting us to think about it with respect. As we go on, we'll look at how angels, divine knowledge, and sacred names all came together to make a world where wisdom was both a gift and a duty. We will slowly enter the realms of the unseen, the divine, and the forbidden, where even silence is a way to worship and learn. The world of angels stretches out in quiet majesty, far beyond the reach of ordinary eyes. These beings, who were bright and eternal, moved with purpose, watching people, protecting sacred truths, and sometimes sharing knowledge that was both amazing and dangerous. Picture how softly they shine in the night sky, how the movement of the stars makes a soft hum, and how the calm is so deep that it seems to seep into the hearts of people below. In the space between heaven and earth, we find the story of names, angels, and the secret knowledge that has shaped the Bible's hidden layers. The book of Enoch says that the Watchers were angels who protected people, taught them wisdom, and sometimes tempted them to be curious. They didn't always have good intentions, because knowledge has two sides, the light of understanding and the shadow of misuse. The Watchers shared what they knew about the stars, the heavens, the cycles of the earth, and the secret rules that governed creation. But with this gift came the risk of not following the rules. When people came across this wisdom without showing it the respect it deserved, they could get confused, tempted, or even corrupt. The scribes and monks in Ethiopia knew these stories very well. They knew that names were more than just words. They were living energies that connected people and gods. The name of God, which is holy and not to be spoken, echoed this heavenly rhythm. It was important to be careful and responsible with every angelic teaching and every piece of forbidden knowledge. The monks were very careful with these revelations, as if the secrets themselves might react badly if they were used wrong. Picture a room full of scrolls, with the faint smell of ink and parchment in the air. Monks are quietly talking to each other about how to find the right balance between wisdom and restraint. The forbidden knowledge included lessons on how to make things, astronomy, the secrets of metals and herbs, and even the arts of the divine. But these weren't taught in a casual way. They were carefully given to people, kept secret, and passed down through generations who knew that having power without understanding could lead to disaster. The names of God and angels also had this duality. When spoken carefully, they asked for help, safety, and understanding. If said carelessly, they could confuse, mislead, or cause problems that weren't meant to happen. This understanding influenced the Ethiopian Bible, its focus on preservation, and the deliberate silence surrounding holy names. Picture the monks working in silence, knowing that they were touching knowledge that had been shared by heavenly beings. Every scroll turned into more than just a piece of writing. It became a place where people could put their trust in God. They wrote down the words and memorized them. They would often stop to think about them, and sometimes whisper prayers to thank the angels who had given them this knowledge and ask for help in using it wisely. During these times, silence taught me and patience protected me. The forbidden knowledge wasn't just hidden, it was carefully guarded so that people could only find it when they were ready, humble, and devoted. The mountains of Ethiopia stood still and watched over this sacred guardianship. Outside, winds blew across valleys and peaks, carrying the faint sounds of prayer and devotion. Inside, candlelight softly danced over old scrolls, bringing to light names that had survived hundreds of years of change, erasure, and translation. People here didn't fear or hoard forbidden knowledge. They saw it as a gift that came with a lot of responsibility. The monks knew that just knowing wasn't enough. They needed to show respect, and respect needed to be held back. As you listen tonight, picture how these secrets would feel if they were pressing down on your heart. Feel the steady beat of devotion that has kept the holy safe for hundreds of years. Imagine angels watching from above, not judging, but quietly guiding, making sure that knowledge only goes to those who are ready to honor it. Imagine monks kneeling over scrolls, moving their hands slowly, carefully, and with love, as if every stroke of ink is a bridge between heaven and earth. The relationship between angels, names, and forbidden knowledge shows us that wisdom is not always easy to understand. Even when it comes from sacred knowledge, power comes with responsibility. The Ethiopian Bible, which has kept names and teachings safe, shows that this is true. It is a sign of devotion, self-control, and the quiet protection of those who knew how to balance revelation and respect. As the candlelight flickers in your room and the world around you becomes quiet, let your mind drift softly into this old space. Picture the names of God softly vibrating in the air, the angels watching with bright eyes, and the people who knew how sacred the forbidden knowledge was holding it safely. Allow yourself to feel the calm, the respect, and the slow, steady rhythm of devotion that has brought these truths to us over the years. And keep in mind that the story of these names, angels, and wisdom is just starting to come to light. As we go on our journey, we will learn about the oral traditions, the silent teachings, and how the Ethiopian Bible kept the holy names and wisdom that the rest of the world almost forgot. We will see how devotion, patience, and respect for the holy became a bridge across time, connecting us to knowledge that is both old and new, waiting for those who are willing to listen with their hearts. Before careful strokes of ink kept holy knowledge, safe, divine truths spread through whispers, songs, and gentle lessons. In the quiet halls of Ethiopia's highland monasteries, these oral traditions became a lifeline, a living memory that carried the sacred through time, long before a single scroll was ever penned. Picture yourself sitting with these old teachers, the air thick with respect, as they spoke softly, with each word having a purpose and each pause full of meaning. These weren't stories to make you laugh. They were vessels of wisdom, hidden words that were meant to be felt and understood, not just read aloud. Oral traditions had a special kind of power. Written texts could be lost, translated wrong, or made easier to understand, but spoken words needed people to be there, pay attention, and be devoted. Every listener became a part of a sacred chain, and it was their job to remember, think about, and pass it on carefully. The Ethiopian scribes knew that the real power of these teachings was in the teacher's breath, the soft tone of voice, and the pauses that let understanding take root. They wrote them down on scrolls later. Think of a teacher leaning in close and whispering a name or phrase. The person listening feels it deep in their heart, like the echo of eternity itself. The sacred names of God were spoken softly, almost like meditation, among the whispered words. These names held the essence of creation, the universe's rhythm, and the wisdom of angels who had come down to help people in the past. But the monks and elders knew that words alone couldn't fully express what they meant. They said that you should approach the sacred slowly, with patience, and with an open heart. Some words were completely hidden, and their meaning only came to light when people were really thinking about them and praying. In this way, the oral tradition became both a way to teach and a way to protect the holy from being misused. The strength of these hidden words was beyond what anyone could understand. Speaking without respect could cause confusion, make things harder to understand, or upset the delicate balance between the mortal and the divine. They weren't scared, they were respectful. It was the realization that some knowledge is like a delicate flame. If you don't take care of it, it will go out, but if you do, it will light the way forward. Imagine a small room in a mountain monastery, with candlelight softly illuminating the space and monks softly murmuring prayers. Angels are there, guiding the breath and rhythm of each word. In this place, hidden words were alive and waiting for hearts that were open enough to fully receive them. Because it was so isolated, Ethiopia became a safe place for this sacred oral tradition. Valleys, rivers, and peaks made it hard to get to the mountains, and only those who came with respect could hear their voices. Here, people couldn't rush knowledge, and secrets were never forced on people who weren't ready. Every name whispered, and every soft syllable was a bridge between the divine and human understanding, a sacred rhythm that flowed through time. As you listen, picture this rhythm in your head, letting the story sink in like the silence of a candlelit room, where every shadow and sound has meaning. But oral traditions were not always the same. Over the years, they changed slowly and gently. Elders would teach apprentices by passing on what they knew and carefully making sure they understood not only the words, but also what they meant. Some teachings stayed secret for hundreds of years, only coming out when the listener's heart was ready. The Ethiopian Bible, which later wrote down these truths, shows how patient this growth was. Every holy name and every lesson written down in its pages has the echoes of countless whispered prayers and the echoes of devotion through time. As you read this story tonight, picture yourself sitting with the monks. Listen to their soft voices, which almost blend with the wind outside. Feel the sacred weight of their words, and let yourself take in the patience and respect that have kept these traditions alive. These hidden words aren't gone. They live on in silence, in careful devotion, and in the hearts of those who honor them. The oral tradition is a living link that reminds us that knowledge is not just facts, but a holy experience that should be approached slowly, with love, and with care. In the quiet of the Ethiopian mountains, oral traditions made sure that the sacred names, the wisdom of angels, and the understanding of creation stayed the same. They remind us that some truths can't be forced, rushed, or said without thinking. They exist in patience, in the teacher's measured breath, and in the listener's attentive heart. These hidden words will help us understand the Ethiopian Bible better as the story goes on. They will show us the delicate balance between revelation and restraint, between divine knowledge and human responsibility. The world outside of Ethiopia became louder and more connected. Sacred texts began to travel with travelers, merchants, and messengers from far-off empires. With each trip, knowledge spread to new places, but so did the quiet hand of change. Translations started to show up, each trying to make the holy words clearer to more people. But translation also meant change, which could be on purpose or by accident. Imagine the delicate lines of a scroll being rewritten in a foreign land, with each word changing its meaning a little bit, and the sacred rhythm changing a little bit. The scroll was carefully kept in a cool mountain monastery. The Ethiopian Bible, on the other hand, was mostly left alone. It was safe because it was alone, but it also quietly watched as things changed in other places. Outside of these highlands, scribes changed holy names to titles, made teachings easier to understand, and changed phrases to fit the culture, politics, or religious beliefs of their time. People started using Lord instead of God's name, and the sacred names were replaced with more common ones. What was once personal and meaningful in the original languages became stiff and formal, but not as alive. Think about how it would feel to hold one version in your hands and then compare it to another. You would feel the difference not just in the letters, but also in the energy of the words themselves. These changes that weren't obvious weren't always bad. Fear or reverence that was misunderstood, efforts to make the sacred more accessible, or the natural human desire to control what is mysterious were often to blame. But the results were important. When sacred names were changed, the link to the divine essence got weaker. The rhythm and power of the original text, which generations of Ethiopian monks worked hard to keep, were lost. This subtle loss of meaning shows how easy it is to change sacred knowledge, even when you mean well. But in Ethiopia, the people who protected the Bible fought against these changes. The scribes, who were very religious and knew a lot about oral tradition, knew how dangerous it was to change the names of God. Every copy and scroll showed that they had been kept safe. Picture the soft rustle of parchment as a monk carefully copied each letter, making sure that every holy name stayed exactly the same as it had been given. Candlelight danced over walls covered in scrolls, each one holding hundreds of years of care, devotion, and self-control. Translations here were not watered down. The original meaning was respected, even when foreign versions tried to change it. But knowledge doesn't exist in a vacuum. Sometimes travelers, scholars, and emissaries brought back their own versions of the texts, and the monks would study them very carefully. They would compare, think about, and sometimes write down the differences, knowing that even small changes could change the meaning, make it harder to understand, and lessen the sacred resonance. They didn't often share these observations with people outside their walls because they knew how important it was to keep the right balance between revealing and protecting. Imagine how quiet the study was, how calm the debate was, and how careful the decision-making was, all without rushing or making noise, as centuries of wisdom guided every choice. Some changes were made on purpose, with the help of power or authority. To control worship, names were changed. To make things easier to understand, and to fit political or religious agendas, texts were sometimes changed. But in the quiet mountains of Ethiopia, these pressures didn't have much of an effect. The holy names, the subtle teachings, and the angel's wisdom stayed safe because of devotion and the steady hands of those who knew how important it was. Think about how patient and respectful the monks were, and how carefully they worked to protect not only words, but also the very essence of divine communication. As you listen tonight, picture yourself walking through these monasteries with candlelight lighting your way and the smell of old parchment in the air. Each scroll tells a story of resistance, careful preservation, and the bravery to stand up for the truth in a world that wants to make things easier, replace them, or erase them. Feel the weight of centuries in your hands and the calm, unwavering devotion that has kept the Ethiopian Bible safe from hidden alterations. These efforts were not just about keeping the text safe, they were also about keeping the link between people and the sacred, the living pulse of divine knowledge that has been passed down carefully through the ages. The story of translations and hidden changes shows us that knowledge is fragile, sacred, and very much alive. Words are more than just letters. They hold meaning, energy, and connection. Even small changes to them change the relationship between what people know and what God knows. Still, some knowledge lives on, waiting patiently for hearts that are ready to receive it. The Ethiopian Bible is one of these vessels. It carries the holy names, teachings, and wisdom in their original form, and quietly fights against the tide of change and simplification. The monks worked in a way that felt both normal and holy in the quiet monasteries of Ethiopia, where the sun's early light gently slipped across the stone walls. They moved their hands slowly over the parchment, carefully copying letters. Each stroke was a prayer, and each word was a bridge across time. These scribes were more than just recorders. They were protectors of sacred names, guardians of divine knowledge, and carriers of a lineage that had been carefully passed down from generation to generation. Picture yourself walking among them, feeling the soft warmth of candlelight, hearing the soft scratching of quills, and feeling the weight of every movement. It wasn't easy to give someone the job of scribe. They needed to be patient, humble, and have a deep understanding of how important the texts they worked with were. Each monk knew that one misspelled letter or carelessly copied name could change the connection between people and God for hundreds of years. The scribes moved with careful, meditative precision, their minds completely on what they were doing. Writing became an act of devotion, a prayer that went far beyond the walls of the monastery. There was a hidden lineage of knowledge behind every scroll. This lineage was more than just bloodlines. It was a chain of trust, teaching, and devotion that was passed down quietly from teacher to student and from mentor to apprentice. Picture an old monk leaning over a young scribe and whispering the right way to write a holy name while guiding the scribe's hand as it moves across the parchment. In these quiet conversations, wisdom comes not just from what is said, but also from what is meant, how it is touched, and how long it takes to correct. Every generation got not only the text itself, but also the love and respect that had kept it safe for hundreds of years. This secret family tree went beyond the monasteries. Some scribes traveled over remote mountains, bringing scrolls from one secluded monastery to another. This made sure that sacred knowledge stayed safe, even in far-off places. Every trip was planned, slow, and safe. People carefully wrapped the scrolls and often said silent prayers for their safety and guidance. The scribes knew they were part of something much bigger than themselves, a living chain that connected the past, present, and future, as well as people and God. Imagine how responsible they must have felt as they walked along narrow mountain paths with scrolls in their arms, knowing that the survival of centuries of knowledge depended on how carefully they moved. The scribes also knew how powerful silence could be. They knew, just like the oral traditions that came before written texts, that not all knowledge could or should be spoken freely. It was important to take care of the sacred names, the teachings of angels, and the hidden wisdom in the Ethiopian Bible. Not only were the scribes responsible for keeping letters safe, but they were also responsible for keeping their meaning sacred. The silence protected them and kept divine truth safe from being changed or misused by people. Picture the room lit by candlelight, the smell of ink and parchment in the air, and the quiet sound of quills scratching across scrolls. Every letter is a heartbeat, and every word is a link to generations of love. The scribes worked slowly, carefully, and with great care, just like the mountains themselves. The world outside didn't know about their hidden lineage, and they didn't need fame or money to get it. It was a labor of love, a bridge between people and God, and a silent promise to God to keep what was most holy safe. This family line also had duties. Every scribe knew that sharing information could lead to problems. The scribes' careful care made sure that the angels' wisdom, the holy names, and the deeper truths of creation were kept safe and sound. They knew how to strike a balance between revealing and holding back, between sharing and keeping safe. And in this balance, the Ethiopian Bible stayed whole, a sign of years of quiet devotion and careful care. Imagine yourself sitting with these scribes as you listen tonight. Feel how calm their work is, how heavy each letter is with the weight of centuries, and how patient each hand is. Know that what they kept was not just words, but a living link to divine wisdom that was carefully kept and passed down through a hidden lineage that goes back in time. Every scroll, every name, and every carefully copied word is a thread in a tapestry of devotion that connects the listener today to the faithful guardians of the past. In this sacred rhythm, it becomes clear what the scribe's job is: to keep what is eternal safe. They protect the fragile power of sacred words, they carry on the trust of generations, and they keep the silent, living pulse of divine knowledge. The Ethiopian Bible continues to light up hearts with its patient devotion, keeping not just the words but the very essence of sacred wisdom. In Ethiopia's monasteries, names were more than letters or sounds. They were living things. Every holy name had power, a vibration that linked the human heart to the divine and crossed time and space. Think of one word that is vibrating in the air, unspoken, but still reminding you of creation, order, and guidance that you can't see. The monks really understood this. They knew that the names of God and angels were not just symbols, but also sources of energy, intention, and protection. People have known about this power since the beginning of time. The Hebrew texts say that the divine name is holy, can't be spoken, and is full of life. It was not only rude to say it without knowing what it meant, it was also dangerous. And yet, when approached with love, it became a source of help, safety, and connection. Picture a pilgrim walking through a candlelit monastery and feeling the presence of these names all around him. Each syllable feels like a soft, protective hug that guides his steps and lights the way ahead. The Ethiopian Bible carefully kept these names, not just in letters but also in meaning. The monks and scribes knew that these names were often a sign from God. A name could keep you safe while you travel, help you see things clearly when you're not sure, or give you courage when you're scared. Picture saying a sacred name over and over in your head, feeling the vibration in your heart, and then feeling calm and sure, as if the angels are whispering directions to you through the unspoken word. In addition to offering protection, sacred names were also ways to gain understanding. They had the essence of divine qualities like mercy, justice, patience, and wisdom. Thinking about a name wasn't an intellectual exercise, it was a spiritual experience. The names had lessons in their structure and sound that taught patience, humility, and respect. Picture yourself sitting quietly in a monastery, eyes closed, feeling the name's resonance grow stronger within you. This will help you think, change how you see things, and open your heart to the divine rhythm of creation. Angels also had a very important part to play in this holy system. The Watchers and other heavenly beings were given divine knowledge, and their guidance often came to people through the sounds of names. A holy name wasn't just a label, it was a way for angels to give you information. It could show you the truth, light up hidden paths, and warn you not to make mistakes. Picture an angel's faint presence in a quiet room, the gentle pull of guidance that is clear but not too strong, as the sacred name vibrates softly in the air, connecting heaven and earth. The Ethiopian scribes knew that this power came with a duty. Names could not be abused, spoken carelessly, or used for personal gain. Doing so put the connection between people and God at risk, which could have broken the delicate balance that the holy had created. So, every lesson, every copied letter, and every whispered prayer was full of awareness. Monks said that the holy name is both a gift and a duty, a living guide that should be approached with respect and humility. Picture the rhythm of life in these monasteries, soft chanting in the morning, hands moving slowly over parchment, eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight, and hearts steady and devoted. In this rhythm, holy names became living friends and quiet teachers that changed Ethiopia's spiritual landscape for hundreds of years. By keeping and honoring these names, the monks made sure that divine guidance was always available to those who were willing to approach it with respect. As we slowly move through this story tonight, picture the calm energy of these holy names around you, not just as words, but as living vibrations. Every name has a map, a guide, and a quiet lesson for the mind and heart. Each one is a bridge that connects the world of the living to the world of the dead and the world of the divine. And in this holy system, the keys to unlocking their true power are patience, humility, and devotion. The hidden heart of the Ethiopian Bible is the sacred powers of names and divine guidance. The knowledge in these names has lasted because people have preserved it carefully, meditated on it, and shown it respect. It has given wisdom, comfort, and light to those who are open to it. Picture yourself in a quiet room with flickering candlelight and the weight of centuries of devotion in the air. You can feel the gentle guidance of these names moving around you, whispering patience, courage, and understanding. And so, as the night goes on and the world outside gets quieter, let your heart rest with this quiet knowledge. The holy names are alive and breathing in the texts, in the silence, and in the hearts of those who love them. Through them, divine guidance flows softly, helping people understand, keeping them safe, and connecting them with the unseen realms of love and wisdom. Tonight, as you listen, feel this sacred power's rhythm settle softly in your heart. It will be a quiet friend as you learn more about the mysteries of the Ethiopian Bible. As sacred scrolls made their way to far-off places, a small but important change started to happen. In other countries, the names of God and the angels, which were once kept with the greatest respect, were changed, made simpler, or even erased. Think about how a holy syllable that has been loved for hundreds of years is replaced by a generic title. The divine vibration is lessened, and the subtle guidance is almost forgotten. The people who made these changes often did so on purpose, with fear, authority, or misunderstanding guiding each stroke. The Ethiopian monks were aware of these changes. They knew that even small changes could have effects that lasted for generations, cutting people off from the sacred power that is hidden in every name. Names weren't random. They were vessels of divine essence, channels of protection, insight, and spiritual energy. When it was replaced, the link between heaven and earth got weaker. Picture holding two copies of a holy book. One is whole and full of energy, while the other is changed, looks familiar, but has a weak spiritual rhythm. Some of the erasures were done on purpose. Rulers, scholars, and translators tried to strengthen their own power, make sure that teachings were the same for everyone, or stop what they thought was abuse. People thought that sacred names, which were full of power and authority, could be dangerous if they fell into the wrong hands. They hoped to control worship, understanding, and access to divine insight by replacing them with general terms. But by doing that, they cut off a thread that had connected people directly to divine guidance for hundreds of years. The names that were lost weren't just forgotten, they were silenced, and their power lay dormant, waiting for someone to bring back their respect. But in Ethiopia, the Bible's guardians kept the holy syllables safe, knowing that they couldn't be simplified to get to the true essence of the divine. The scribes moved slowly and carefully, making sure that each letter stayed whole. Candles flickered over the parchment as hands traced each sacred name and whispered silent prayers for its safety. Here, faith and patience became shields that protected not only words, but also their vibrational essence. Think about how heavy this responsibility is, how focused you have to be, and how much love you have for each careful move. The use of sacred names in other places also caused confusion. People in communities that used changed texts could recite the words, study the stories, and follow the rituals, but they might still feel a little empty or disconnected. Without the original names, the flow of divine guidance became weaker, and the subtle protection that sacred words used to have faded. The Ethiopian Bible, which has been passed down through generations of scribes, oral traditions, and careful preservation, became a rare place where divine knowledge was still intact. Think about how the monks, knowing about this far-off erasure, quietly protected what was left, making sure that the original names and their holy power would live on without being changed. This story of manipulation and erasure is not only about the past, it is also about people. It reminds us that sacred knowledge can be very fragile when it is not understood or used correctly. It shows how important it is to use divine wisdom wisely. Names are more than just sounds. They are also intentions, energy, and a way to connect with unseen guidance. Even if you don't know it, losing them changes the delicate balance of understanding between people and God. As you listen tonight, think about how carefully things are being kept the same in Ethiopia, as opposed to how things are changing far away. Feel the respect of the scribes as they patiently trace the sacred syllables with their hands. Feel the quiet pulse of devotion that has kept the spiritual essence of these names alive for hundreds of years. The erasure, in other places, only shows how wise it is to be careful, patient, and watchful when protecting what is holy. The Ethiopian Bible is a living proof of this dedication. Sacred names survived through the years, even though they were lost in other places. Each complete syllable stands for hundreds of years of care, silent prayers, and unwavering devotion. Think about how the energy of these names surrounds you. It's a subtle but strong reminder of the link between the earthly and the divine that has been protected from misunderstanding and change. And so, as we go deeper into the story tonight, remember how important these sacred syllables are. They are not just letters, they are links to divine guidance, subtle teachers, and protectors of human understanding. The manipulation and erasure that happened in other places make what Ethiopia kept stand out even more. The living pulse of sacred names, still there, waiting for hearts that are ready to approach them with respect, humility, and devotion. The Ethiopian Bible kept its original vibrational essence through patience, devotion, and careful guardianship. It protected, enlightened, and connected people who honored the sacred rhythm of names. As you listen tonight, let yourself feel the subtle power of these syllables. They guide you through time, whispering calm, protection, and understanding to every heart that is paying attention. With patience and devotion, a holy task began, bringing back the original names, the very syllables that had once been filled with divine energy. Picture monks with steady hands over parchment and eyes reflecting candlelight, tracing the letters of names that had been forgotten, changed, or silenced in faraway places. Every stroke was more than just writing. It was a prayer, an act of respect, and a bridge that connected people to the divine will written down in the holy texts. To restore something, you had to do more than just copy letters. It needed understanding, intuition, and a link to centuries of stored knowledge. Monks meditated on the syllables, listening with their hearts, feeling the subtle resonance, and letting the sacred vibration guide their hands. Picture yourself sitting quietly among them, feeling the soft hum of devotion fill the room as the old names were softly awakened, one by one, and their hidden power flowed back into the world. The process was slow, careful, and holy. Scholars looked at scrolls, listened to oral histories, and looked at family trees that had been passed down through the years. Every name was looked at, and every syllable was compared to the rhythm of the original devotion. This was not just an academic exercise, it was a spiritual one. Each restored name brought back clarity, protection, and insight that had been lost over the years due to changes. Imagine how amazed those who wrote these letters must have felt as they felt the pulse of divine guidance coming back to life. Bringing these names back also brought back intention. Each name had a purpose beyond sound and syllable, to guide people in their actions, to protect them when they were scared, and to subtly show them wisdom. To speak these names with devotion was to align oneself with the rhythm of creation, to feel the soft presence of angels guiding, protecting, and whispering gentle truths. Imagine a moment of quiet meditation, where the utterance of a single syllable brings a calm certainty, as if the universe itself has paused to respond. The Ethiopian Bible, through careful preservation and restoration, became a living testament to this sacred endeavor. Every name that was restored reminded people of their connection to the divine, their duty to carry sacred knowledge, and the quiet power that comes from words chosen by God. Picture the monk's hands moving over the parchment, the light of the candles making shadows dance, the soft sound of prayers filling the room, and the feeling that something old and eternal is coming back to life. Patience and humility were also needed for restoration. The scribes and monks understood that knowledge is delicate, that divine will cannot be coerced, and that sacred power only responds to receptive hearts. They walked up to each name slowly, with respect and with quiet devotion. This careful rhythm made sure that the names kept their vibrational essence, their guidance, and their connection to people after they were restored. As you listen tonight, picture how calm you will feel as the soft rhythm of restoration settles in your mind and heart. The Ethiopian Bible kept not only letters, but also living guidance through this process. Sacred names became channels through which divine wisdom flowed, subtle yet profoundly transformative. Every restoration was a step toward reconnecting, a gentle unfolding of an old intention, and a reminder that humanity's access to divine guidance is valuable, fragile, and should be treated with respect. As you get deeper into this story, think about how these restored names will slowly spread through time. Communities, generations, and hearts that were in tune with their resonance got help, protection, and understanding that had almost been lost. The work of preserving and restoring wasn't just historical, it was a living, breathing act of devotion that still affects people who treat it with respect. Tonight, as candlelight flickers in your mind's eye and the mountains of Ethiopia echo with silent prayer, let yourself feel the subtle pulse of restored names. These syllables hold hundreds of years of devotion, connect human hearts to the divine, and are the quiet rhythm of intention that leads to understanding, faith, and spiritual growth. Each name, carefully restored, is a soft whisper of love, wisdom, and divine care. It reminds us that even in a world that is always changing, the sacred can last, and guidance can come back to those who are open to it. In the quiet mountains of Ethiopia, where the air is thin and smells like old stones and burning incense, the monks talked about angels. They didn't see them as far-off beings, but as teachers, guides, and silent friends to people. Their wisdom, which was carefully passed down through oral traditions and sacred texts, was both subtle and deep, like a thin thread that connected heaven and earth. Imagine standing in the soft candlelight of a monastery, the walls lined with centuries of parchment, feeling the gentle presence of beings whose knowledge flows quietly, guiding human understanding with care and patience. The angels, the watchers, and other beings from the heavenly realm used to share knowledge directly with people. They taught people how to do things, how to be wise, and how to follow the sacred rhythms of creation. But their lessons were never meant to be used carelessly. Each one came with a duty. The Ethiopian scribes really got this. Knowledge, when approached with humility, illuminated the mind and heart. But knowledge that is used wrong can change how we understand things, make us less devoted, or cut off our souls from divine guidance. Picture a gentle breeze blowing through the monastery halls, carrying the quiet hum of these lessons. Each word and lesson echoes the angel's own purpose. Angels don't always show their secret wisdom in big gestures or dramatic visions. It often comes as quiet guidance, like an intuition, a gentle insight, or a soft understanding that comes to you when you think about something. Monks meditated upon these subtle messages, listening for the rhythm beneath the words, the heartbeat beneath the syllables, and the lessons hidden between lines of scripture. Picture the peace of sitting with a sacred scroll, slowly tracing the letters and letting the unseen guidance flow. It's like a soft, invisible hand resting on your shoulder and pushing you in the right direction. In this fragile system, people work together to understand things. Angels give us wisdom, but we need to be patient, pay attention, and be willing to learn. To learn from each lesson, you need to think about it, be humble, and be willing to let go of what you think you know. The Ethiopian Bible, which has been carefully kept with its holy names intact, serves as a bridge for this exchange. People can tap into the subtle currents of angelic knowledge through its texts, and they can feel their guidance in their minds, hearts, and souls. Think about how peaceful it is to realize that help isn't forced on you. It's offered gently, waiting for you to be ready. This wisdom is not always clear. It can't be forced or told to do something. Angels give people information through holy books, oral traditions, and small signs that people need to carefully figure out, understand, and use. Every lesson has layers, a story, a name, a beat, and a vibration. All of these things are connected to God's plan. The Ethiopian scribes knew that giving away too much information or being too direct could confuse or overwhelm people. And so, a lot of knowledge was hidden, waiting for hearts that were open enough to take it all in. Think of gently peeling back the layers of a scroll. Each layer opens up softly, showing you insight, not just in words, but also in feeling, understanding, and resonance. Restoring sacred names, copying carefully, and meditating patiently all have this larger goal, to bring human understanding into line with the flow of divine wisdom. The names in the Ethiopian Bible are not just labels, they are channels that carry the subtle vibration of angelic insight. They guide, protect, and help you understand when you speak, read, or think about them with respect. Picture the calm certainty of insight coming from the heart, a gentle reminder that you are on a path that was not chosen at random, but rather through centuries of careful preservation and divine intention. Angels' secret wisdom is all about finding a balance. It teaches you to be patient, humble, and respectful. It reminds us that we can't know everything, but we can learn a lot if we do it right. The Ethiopian tradition says that the sacred, the divine, and the human are all connected by thin threads. A single mistake can break the connection, but careful devotion can make it stronger. Picture a night in the monastery, with soft candlelight and still parchment that has been alive with centuries of angelic guidance, waiting to touch the hearts of those who are open to it. As we drift off to sleep with this story, let the angels' quiet presence, the sacred names' subtle power, and the gentle unfolding of wisdom in your mind and heart wash over you. Their lessons aren't loud or bossy. They're soft, rhythmic, and persistent, like a quiet stream flowing through centuries of devotion, carrying understanding to anyone who wants to hear it. Angels' secret wisdom reminds us that divine guidance is always there, patiently waiting, quietly helping us understand, and encouraging hearts that are open enough to receive it with humility and respect. People have always had to deal with the difficult task of interpreting things, even when the sacred names are restored and the wisdom of angels is gently guiding the heart. Knowledge is kept, but it is filtered through the mind and soul of the person who gets it. Picture a room in an Ethiopian monastery with candles lit and scrolls carefully laid out on wooden tables. The monks are quietly meditating on each syllable. They knew that understanding didn't come easily. It took time, humility, and a heart that was in tune with God's rhythm. It's hard for people to understand things. The letters and syllables of sacred names, the stories of angels, and the divine teachings all have a subtle resonance that brings them to life. However, when you read them with pride, haste, or distraction, their meaning can change. Misunderstanding may not completely erase the wisdom, but it can weaken its power, making the seeker feel like they are not getting the help they need. Picture a young monk who wants to understand the deeper truths, but is having trouble calming his mind enough to hear the rhythm behind the words. This tension is a very human problem, wanting to know but having trouble getting it. To keep your faith during these tough times, you need to trust the process, the lineage of knowledge, and the unseen guidance that comes from the sacred texts. Devotion keeps the heart going, even when things are unclear, or when the subtle power of a name seems far away. Imagine the monk's daily routine: prayers in the morning, soft chanting, and long hours of careful copying. Each of these things was a way to strengthen their faith, and a quiet way to say that understanding comes with time. Their faith wasn't blind, it was grown, thought out, and based on years of careful preservation. It's normal to make mistakes when interpreting things, but they can teach you something. Every mistake shows how important it is to be humble, go back to the source, and listen more than you talk. Monks in Ethiopia said that faith is not strengthened by certainty, but by searching. When the rhythm of holy names, angelic guidance, or divine teaching seemed out of reach, taking a break and thinking about it brought it back. Picture yourself sitting in the soft candlelight, feeling the pulse of centuries of devotion, and realizing that every question, doubt, or hesitation is a step toward deeper understanding. The challenge is not just for individuals, but for communities as well. Different monks, scribes, and seekers may interpret texts in distinct ways, leading to unique insights or misconceptions. But the hidden lineage of knowledge and careful preservation act as a stabilizing force, bringing these interpretations back to the core truths. Picture quiet conversations in the monastery halls, with soft voices arguing about how to say a name, the rhythm of a story, or the meaning of an angelic lesson. Each conversation is a gentle effort to bring understanding in line with centuries of divine purpose. Faith is also put to the test by the fact that the world outside of Ethiopia changed texts and erased holy names. People who depend on corrupted versions might feel like they don't have any guidance, or they might not trust the texts at all. In this case, the monk's example gives us hope. Patience, careful study, and devotion can bring us back together. Picture the peace of mind that comes from knowing that the lineage of preservation is still strong, even though things have changed in other places. This is a way to reconnect with the original wisdom. The Ethiopian tradition says that faith is a quiet friend, not something that forces you to do something. It takes time to grow through meditation, respect, and careful study of holy texts. Picture a seeker slowly breathing in and out as they read the letters of a restored scroll. They can feel the subtle pulse of angelic wisdom and the divine intention that runs through every syllable. Understanding does not grow quickly, but rather through quiet devotion, which is like the rhythm of years of faithful preservation. Let this gentle fight touch our hearts as we listen tonight. The times when you doubt your understanding, the hard parts of interpreting, and the small changes in your understanding are not failures, they are part of the journey. With patience, humility, and faithful attention, people can stay connected to the sacred, with angels guiding them, restored names protecting them, and a line of devoted scribes supporting them. Think about how calming it is to know this. Even when understanding fails, guidance is still there, quietly waiting for hearts that are ready to accept it with respect. The Ethiopian Bible, with its preserved names and teachings, is not only a source of information but also a living example of faith in action. It shows that understanding doesn't happen right away, that human perception is fragile, and that devotion is needed to stay in touch with the divine. As your mind settles down tonight, let yourself feel the gentle rhythm of faith, the quiet presence of guidance, and the slow growth of understanding that has been going on for hundreds of years. Before there were modern libraries and printed books, people put their faith in fragile scrolls, careful hands, and devoted hearts to protect the sacred knowledge of the Ethiopian Bible. But even after hundreds of years, natural decay, and changes made by people translating it into other languages, this wisdom stayed strong. Picture the soft glow of candlelight in a quiet monastery, the smell of ink and parchment in the air, and the sound of scribes carefully copying letters that had been passed down for generations. Every stroke of the quill was a way to keep something safe, a small miracle of strength against time and corruption. To keep sacred knowledge alive, you need to be patient, respectful, and keep it going. Every generation of monks and every careful copying of a scroll made sure that God's will stayed the same. The Ethiopian lineage stayed true, even when other texts were changed or erased. Imagine a monk working quietly for hours, with a steady hand and a heart that is in tune with the task at hand. He knows that his care preserves not only words, but also the living pulse of guidance that is found in sacred names and angelic teachings. The strength is not in the paper or the ink, but in the love that keeps it going. These texts were also put to the test by nature. The fragile parchments were in danger from humidity, bugs, and the slow passage of time. But protective measures like careful storage, climate-controlled rooms, and ritualized handling helped keep this information safe. Picture the monks carefully rolling up scrolls, wrapping them in cloth to keep them safe, and whispering prayers for their safety. The act of preservation itself became an extension of devotion, a meditation on the enduring presence of divine guidance across generations. Another problem was that people got in the way. We've seen that translations into other languages often changed sacred names, watered down teachings, and unintentionally broke the spiritual rhythm that was built into the texts. But the Ethiopian guards stayed alert. They made sure that divine knowledge stayed alive and quietly strong by keeping the original lineage, carefully restoring changed names, and thinking about the sacred meaning of each syllable. Think of how quietly determined these scribes were, knowing that even though the world might change texts and interpretations in other places, their careful devotion could keep the essence of divine truth the same. The adaptability of sacred knowledge, without losing its essence, is another sign of its strength. Monks and scholars said that context, practice, and devotion all help you understand more. Names, teachings, and angelic guidance all contain deep truths that never change, even as language, practices, and communities do. Picture a reader hundreds of years from now, reading the same letters that monks wrote long ago. They will feel the same pulse of guidance and the same quiet reassurance that they can connect with the divine, even after a long time has passed. This resilience isn't something that just happens, it needs to be worked on. Every generation that reads the Ethiopian Bible helps it stay the same. People help keep sacred knowledge alive by reading, copying, thinking about it, and meditating on it. Picture a peaceful morning in a monastery, the soft scratching of quills, the soft murmur of prayers, and the slow unfolding of devotion as young monks learn from older monks. In this rhythm, knowledge isn't just kept alive, it's alive in every heart that pays attention. The subtle wisdom of angels also helps with this strength. Their teachings, which are linked to holy names and careful preservation of texts, are like invisible threads that make the connection between generations stronger. Every restored name and every syllable that has been thought about adds to the vibrational essence of divine guidance. Imagine the quiet flow of centuries, unbroken, carrying both human devotion and angelic insight, keeping sacred knowledge safe from the effects of time, change, and misunderstanding. The Ethiopian Bible is a living proof that sacred knowledge lasts. It has survived, which shows that devotion, patience, and respect are stronger than decay, change, or neglect. The scrolls, names, and teachings remind us that what is truly sacred can last through human mistakes, physical weakness, and changes in history. Picture the soft comfort of knowing that, no matter what, divine guidance is always there, ready to light up hearts that are open to it. As night falls softly and the world becomes quiet, let this strength be a lesson in how to be strong in silence. When kept with care, respect, and patience, sacred knowledge can stand the tests of time, human error, and change. Each generation is part of a living chain that keeps not only the text, but also the sacred essence it carries alive through careful devotion. Picture this calm strength surrounding you right now. It is a gentle reminder that truth, wisdom, and divine guidance will always be there, even when the world changes around them. In Ethiopia's peaceful mountains, where the air carries the whispers of centuries, some traditions are kept alive by silence rather than ink or parchment. These are the secret practices that devoted monks, scribes, and elders keep safe. Their lives are dedicated to protecting sacred knowledge. Picture a quiet room with candlelight that isn't too bright. Ancient scrolls are resting on wooden stands, and the monks move slowly and carefully, their whispers barely audible. This is where silence itself becomes a way for divine wisdom to get through. The secret traditions are hard to see. They are in gestures, careful pronunciations, and silent meditation. They learn not through formal lessons, but by watching, copying, and getting help from others. Imagine a young apprentice sitting quietly next to an older monk and watching how he carefully unrolls a scroll, touches the sacred parchment, and moves his hands with respect over each syllable. In this quiet transmission, knowledge flows from heart to heart in a way that words alone could never do. These guardians know how to hold back. It is not safe to talk about some teachings, especially those about holy names and divine guidance. When people talk about knowledge too much, it can lose its power or be misunderstood. The monks make a safe space by being quiet, which lets wisdom sink in slowly, depending on how ready the seeker is. Picture the soft sound of your own breathing as you sit still, taking in the rhythm of devotion and feeling the invisible threads of guidance weaving through the air. There are careful rituals that are part of the traditions, such as lighting candles in a certain order, softly chanting while breathing slowly, and tracing letters with a level of focus that is almost like meditation. Every action strengthens the connection to the sacred, keeps energy flowing, and strengthens devotion. Picture the monks moving in perfect time, the soft smell of incense in the air, and the gentle beat of hands and hearts moving together, a quiet symphony of respect that echoes through time. Even small lessons are learned in silence. A look, a pause, or a gentle correction can say more than any words can. The young monk learns to feel the sacred rhythm, hear the vibrations of divine names, and understand the guidance of angels not just through words, but also through intention and presence. Picture a moment of quiet revelation, when understanding comes without being told, when insight comes naturally from years of careful practice and silent devotion. These secret customs are also a way to stay safe. They make sure that sacred knowledge isn't lost or used in the wrong way. The guardians keep the purity of intention, the integrity of divine guidance, and the subtle power of the sacred names by limiting access. Think about a world where every word of the holy texts is treated with respect, every lesson is learned carefully, and every mistake is gently fixed. This is the quiet, long-lasting work of dedicated guardians keeping wisdom alive and safe from harm. In this case, the Ethiopian Bible is more than just a book. It is a living collection of these traditions. Each scroll, each restored name, and each carefully preserved teaching show the marks of centuries of silent protection. Imagine a young scribe's hands glowing softly in the candlelight as he writes letters that have been passed down in silence for generations. Each stroke is a quiet pulse of devotion. This is where knowledge comes to life, not by being spoken out loud, but by being passed on slowly and quietly. That's how silence becomes holy. It is a weapon, a teacher, and a shield. The traditions that are passed down in quiet reverence let seekers experience the sacred without being disturbed, learn at their own pace, and feel the subtle guidance of divine intention. Imagine sitting quietly among these guardians, taking in the soft energy of hundreds of years and feeling the wisdom that comes not from loud declarations, but from calm, deliberate, and devoted presence. For hundreds of years, sacred knowledge has been passed down through these secret traditions. It has lived through time, natural decay, and human misunderstanding. The guardians' patience, humility, and devotion keep the sacred pulse alive, leading those who are ready to receive it with respect and openness. Think about how comforting it is to know that some things will always be the same, like the rhythm of devotion, the subtle power of sacred names, and the constant presence of guidance. The Ethiopian Bible has more than just letters and stories on its worn pages. Under the surface, quiet patterns, codes, and secret messages pulse, waiting for hearts that are open enough to notice them. Picture a candlelit room in a quiet monastery, with the smell of burning incense in the air, as a monk lightly runs his finger along a holy scroll. To the untrained eye, the text looks normal. But to those who are devoted, it whispers hidden truths, gentle instructions, and divine insight. The idea of sending coded messages is very old. Every letter, the order of the words, and even the spaces between them have meaning, These weren't just fun puzzles, they were vessels of wisdom meant to teach, guide, and protect. Imagine a single syllable of a holy name, vibrating softly as it connects to another syllable, creating a secret path through the text that connects human understanding to angelic guidance. This is how every sacred name, story, and verse is alive and has more meaning than just what it says. Monks and scribes learned how to read these hidden signals by watching and practicing in silence. The secret messages were hard to find and only showed up for people who came with humility, focus, and respect. Picture the quiet of early morning, a young apprentice leaning over a scroll, breathing softly, feeling the delicate rhythm of each word, and sensing a guidance that isn't spelled out but is felt deep inside. This is the gentle pulse of coded instruction alive, but not in the way that gets in the way, teaching the patient and devoted over time. A lot of the time, these hidden messages had useful advice, spiritual insight, and moral lessons. A story about a prophet might have an extra layer of advice in the way that names or letters are repeated in a subtle way. A description of creation could hide directions for prayer, reflection, or meditation. The secret is not in forcing someone to reveal something, it's in inviting them to stop, think, and listen. Picture a gentle nudge of understanding rising up in your heart, as if the words were speaking directly to your soul and leading you down the path of wisdom. Coded instructions also worked as a safety net. By subtly adding deeper meaning, the knowledge was kept safe from people who might use it for bad things. These hidden messages were often lost in far-off places where names had been changed or texts had been changed. But in Ethiopia, careful preservation made sure that the sacred pulse stayed alive, and those who knew how to find it could get divine guidance even when things were unclear. Think about how calming it is to know that guidance is still there, quietly woven into the text, waiting for the patient, attentive seeker. The best thing about these hidden messages is that they follow the way people understand things. They are never rushed, forced, or demanding. They happen instead when the reader is ready, which teaches them to be patient, pay attention, and be humble. Imagine slowly finding a hidden link between two names, a phrase that keeps coming up, or the soft echo of an angelic lesson in a story. This quiet revelation strengthens faith and understanding, showing how human and divine insight work together. Even the tiniest things can mean a lot. A line that is placed just right, the repetition of a sacred syllable, or the soft structure of a passage can all hold a secret message. These messages have helped devoted monks and faithful seekers for hundreds of years, slowly changing their understanding, character, and spiritual awareness. As you trace letters on a sacred scroll, imagine feeling the soft vibration of centuries of intention flowing through your hands and heart. You will realize that every small detail holds layers of wisdom waiting to be understood. The Ethiopian Bible is more than just a book. It is a living guide with sacred names, restored words, and hidden messages. Every syllable, story, and subtle instruction is a chance to learn more, think about things, and connect with divine guidance. Picture yourself sitting still, with the soft flicker of candlelight around you. You can feel the pulse of hidden wisdom, guiding your thoughts and bringing understanding to you in soft, patient rhythms. Sacred knowledge goes beyond time and space through these secret messages and coded instructions. It makes sure that the pulse of divine intention stays the same, even when words are changed, erased, or misinterpreted. People who come with devotion, patience, and humility can get insights that connect human understanding with angelic wisdom. They can also feel the subtle, lasting presence of guidance across generations. Imagine how calm and confident you would feel if you knew that the text held secrets that were meant to help, protect, and show its depth to those who were willing to listen. The candlelit hallways of Ethiopian monasteries are full of silence that has been there for hundreds of years. Hidden knowledge rests there, waiting for those who are ready to get it. This knowledge isn't always clear. It comes through sacred names, coded messages, and subtle patterns in the texts. Picture a heart that is in tune with these rhythms. Every choice, every thought, and every quiet decision is shaped by the gentle guidance that is built into the divine words. From this point of view, human destiny is not set in stone, but rather is intricately connected to the knowledge that is kept and hidden in sacred texts. Even small decisions can have big effects over time, if you know what you're doing. Imagine a young monk stopping to read a scroll, feeling the subtle vibration of a name that has been restored, and feeling an inner pull toward patience, compassion, or courage. These moments, which are invisible but powerful, shape not only the person's path, but also the course of events over generations. The effects of hidden knowledge are often not noticed until they are clear. A lesson learned in silence, a name spoken with respect, or a coded instruction comprehended during meditation may seem insignificant, yet they profoundly influence one's decisions. Think of a single syllable spoken softly at dawn that helps you decide whether to be kind or give in to temptation. In this way, divine guidance flows quietly, changing people's destinies without force and keeping free will intact while gently aligning with higher wisdom. Monks and scribes knew how to keep this balance. Knowledge that is coerced or misapplied diminishes its nuanced efficacy. But when you approach hidden wisdom with humility, respect, and patience, it can help you understand things better and make decisions with quiet confidence. Think of hundreds of years of devoted guardians who read, wrote about, and thought about sacred texts to make sure that the knowledge they kept was not lost or watered down. Their devotion keeps the rhythm of divine guidance steady, so that everyone who reads the texts can feel a small but powerful change in their life. Every name that has been restored and every message that has been carefully kept has potential. When called upon, thought about, or silently acknowledged, it can calm the mind, help you understand things better, and give you more moral courage. Picture a seeker who has to make a tough choice and isn't sure which way to go. The faint echo of a holy syllable or the quiet pattern of a secret message resonates, giving you clarity and confidence. Hidden knowledge affects not only how we understand things, but also the choices we make that shape our futures. This effect doesn't just affect people. The cumulative effect of preserved knowledge is good for communities and generations. The careful protection of the Ethiopian Bible has made sure that the pulse of God's will flows through whole communities, quietly strengthening values, guiding decisions, and strengthening faith. Think about the soft rhythm of daily life in a monastery. Shared devotion, gentle guidance, and subtle lessons that change hearts and minds over time, creating a strong, peaceful community that follows divine wisdom. Learning to be patient and discerning is another thing that hidden knowledge does. It reminds us that understanding takes time to develop, that the effects of our choices may not be clear right away, and that gentle guidance can change the course of our lives. Think about how calm and assured you feel when you know that even when the results are unclear, guidance is still there, gently shaping each choice with wisdom that has been around for hundreds of years. This isn't forcing someone to do something. It's a quiet alignment, a gentle push toward paths that honor the sacred and the human heart. The Ethiopian Bible, with its holy names, coded instructions, and restored messages, becomes a living link for this effect. Every time you read the text, think about a holy syllable or think about a lesson you didn't see. You are making choices that are in line with God's will. Imagine feeling the gentle pulse of this wisdom and knowing that your choices, guided by subtle hints, can have an effect on not only your own fate, but also the stories of those around you. Let this quiet understanding settle softly in your heart as the night gets darker and the world gets quieter. Hidden knowledge is a kind friend that helps you make decisions, changes your fate, and helps you understand things with patience and respect. Every syllable, lesson, and restored name is a soft whisper of God's plan, reminding us that even the smallest choices are connected to guidance that has been passed down through the ages. Monasteries have been around for hundreds of years, and keeping sacred knowledge safe has never been easy. Time goes on, civilizations come and go, and languages change. but delicate scrolls and sacred texts slowly wear away with age. Think about walking through a monastery hall filled with old manuscripts. You can feel the weight of hundreds of years pressing down on you, and you can feel the quiet determination of all the generations who have worked hard to protect these treasures. There are both natural and man-made problems. Moisture, insects, and the slow breakdown of materials all pose a threat to fragile parchments. Picture the monks slowly rolling and unrolling their scrolls, each move purposeful and every touch full of care, as if the fragile parchment could feel the respect of their hands. Preservation is not only physical, it is also spiritual. Every time you handle something, you are praying and trying to make sure that knowledge stays safe for the people who come after you. People getting involved has made things even harder. When texts moved away from their original monasteries, translators, scribes, and even well-meaning scholars sometimes changed names, words, or instructions. Small changes in language could make meanings less clear or hide the wisdom that is hidden in holy texts. But in Ethiopia, the line of guardians stayed watchful. They fixed broken passages, got back, changed names, and made sure that practices stayed true. Picture a monk comparing several scrolls by candlelight, his hands tracing letters that had been changed in other places, bringing words back to life that have divine meaning. Another problem is understanding. It takes time and focus to fully understand sacred knowledge because it is subtle, layered, and often hidden. Not every generation gets the hidden teachings right away, and some lessons stay hidden until a heart is ready to learn them. Picture a young apprentice sitting quietly at dawn, studying a scroll with great respect. As he does so, he slowly starts to see patterns that have been preserved for hundreds of years. He understands that it takes time, thought, and dedication to learn. This is a reminder that sacred knowledge can't be rushed. It comes out slowly when people are ready. The world is changing, which adds stress. Cultural changes, outside interpretations, and changes in technology can all make it harder to pass on knowledge carefully. But the Ethiopian tradition shows strength. Guardians of the sacred texts changed how they passed on wisdom so that it still honored the original meaning. Picture monks patiently teaching apprentices, using subtle rituals, repetition, and meditation to make sure that their lessons are understood and remembered correctly, even as the world around them changes. This preservation is based on the virtue of patience. Knowledge is strong not because it is protected by force, but because people treat it with respect and humility. Every generation of guardians knows that their duty is only for a short time, a small part of a chain that has been going on for hundreds of years. Think about how quietly devoted these monks are. They know that their work may outlast them, but they do it gently, with respect, and without expecting anything in return. They trust that the wisdom they protect will reach hearts that are ready to receive it. Even hidden messages, subtle instructions, and names that have been restored have to deal with the problem of continuity. A lack of focus, a misunderstood symbol, or a lost tradition could make the flow of guidance less strong. But centuries of careful care have made it very strong. Think about how peaceful and slow daily life is in a monastery. The slow scratching of quills, the soft chanting of prayers, and the careful pacing of meditation all add to the sacred pulse that runs through generations. Even with these problems, the preservation of sacred knowledge is still a sign of human devotion. It shows that even in a world that is always changing, respect, patience, and careful attention can protect the wisdom of the ages. Imagine sitting quietly with this knowledge, the light of candles dancing on the walls. You can feel that knowledge, when kept with love and care, can last through time, distance, and the stress of a world that is always changing. Let this knowledge sink into your heart as night falls. The difficulties of keeping knowledge alive remind us that faithfulness, humility, and patience are just as important as the knowledge itself. Sacred wisdom lasts because people are willing to protect, restore, and pass it on to future generations. Think about how calm it is to know that wisdom is always there, even when time, people, and the world change. In the quiet halls of old Ethiopian monasteries, the scribes work in silence, their hands moving carefully over thin parchment. Every stroke of their quill shows purpose, devotion, and respect. They don't just copy words, they protect divine knowledge and sacred wisdom that has been passed down through the ages. Picture the flickering candlelight lighting up their careful movements, the soft smell of ink and burning incense in the air, and the calm rhythm of minds that have been in tune with centuries of tradition. These scribes do a lot more than just copy things down. Every carefully restored name, every corrected passage, and every small mark make sure that the holy texts still have their full meaning. These scribes know that words are alive and that every syllable has vibration, intention, and divine energy. If a letter is in the wrong place or a name is changed, it could change the flow of the guidance, which could change how a future reader experiences the text. Picture a monk stopping to read a letter, feeling its weight, tracing it carefully, and silently praying that the message from God stays safe. Being a custodian is also about remembering. The scribes memorize the holy texts, and their minds are full of lessons, patterns, and hidden messages that have been passed down for hundreds of years. They think about each line and take in its meaning with their minds, hearts, and souls. Think of how calm and focused a scribe would be as he softly recited names, listening to the quiet sound of each syllable and feeling the invisible threads that connect human understanding to angelic wisdom. In this subtle practice, the sacred knowledge comes to life instead of staying the same. Another important part of the scribe's job is to protect things. They protect the texts from human mistakes, natural decay, and outside interference very carefully. Each scroll is treated with care, kept in a place where it won't get damaged, and only handled with care. Think about how carefully the scrolls were unrolled, read, and rolled back up. Each movement was done with care, as if the act of touching the parchment strengthened the sacred energy inside. The scribes are quiet guards who make sure that divine guidance lasts for many generations. But their job is not just practical, it is also very spiritual. The scribes think of themselves as working with God, passing on the wisdom of angels and the meaning of sacred names through their careful work. Every action, from tracing letters to fixing small mistakes, is a prayer, a devotion, and a way to connect with the divine. Picture a scribe's heart quietly beating with the knowledge that his careful work connects heaven and earth, linking unseen guidance to people who will one day read these texts. The scribes also teach, quietly showing apprentices how to preserve and understand things. People pass on knowledge quietly, often by watching, copying, and teaching without speaking, so that the line of custodianship goes on without a break. Picture a young apprentice sitting next to an older scribe, watching every move and listening to the soft rhythm of chanting. Over time, they learn the sacred practice without anyone saying a word. Layer by layer, heart to heart, the wisdom of centuries is passed down in this calm, patient way. Also, the scribes make sure that hidden messages and coded instructions stay safe. They know that the visible text and the subtle guidance that runs through it work together in a delicate way. Think of a scribe stopping to think about where to put a name, a line, or a symbol, knowing that each one has meaning that goes beyond how it looks at first glance. The Ethiopian Bible is not just a book for them, it is a living guide, a way for God to speak to them, and a map for understanding. The scribes have worked hard for hundreds of years to make sure that divine knowledge survives the tests of time, human error, and changes made by others. They are the living bridge between heaven and earth, showing patience, devotion, and respect. Think about how peaceful it is to know that these guardians are there, quietly keeping the sacred rhythm of knowledge going and letting each heart that is paying attention get guidance in its own time. As night falls, these scribes become a quiet source of inspiration. Their dedication serves as a reminder that safeguarding sacred knowledge necessitates diligence, forbearance, and modesty. They keep the living pulse of divine knowledge by paying close attention, restoring names, and following strict rules. Think about how comforting it is to know that dedicated hands and hearts have protected the sacred for centuries, making sure that those who approach with respect can still find guidance, insight, and divine rhythm. In the peaceful quiet of Ethiopian monasteries, where candlelight softly dances across old walls, divine knowledge does more than teach. It wakes up the spirit. When people read the sacred texts, restored names, and subtle coded instructions, they often feel a quiet change inside them, a gentle stirring of awareness that makes them think and grow spiritually. Picture a gentle breeze blowing through a room full of scrolls, carrying the quiet weight of centuries and touching the mind and soul of a seeker who is patient and respectful. A lot of the time, spiritual awakening starts off quietly. It is not a sudden, dramatic event, but a gentle realization that something beyond the ordinary is there, guiding thoughts, choices, and understanding. Picture yourself tracing the letters of a holy name with your finger and feeling the subtle vibration of intention in each syllable. That vibration stirs something inside, a realization that the divine is subtly woven into the rhythm of life, waiting to light the way for reflection, devotion, and understanding. This awakening naturally leads to inner reflection. When divine knowledge gently settles into the heart, questions come up not to bother, but to help. What do my choices have to do with sacred intention? What lessons are concealed within the names, patterns, and teachings that have endured through the ages? These questions are calls to look inside yourself, think about things, and explore the depths of your own spirit. Imagine a monk at dawn, kneeling next to a scroll with his eyes closed and breathing slowly. The soft pulse of divine guidance echoes in his mind, revealing truths that come not from force, but from careful listening. The subtle effects of divine knowledge also make people more humble. The texts, with their layers of hidden meaning and restored names, remind those who are looking for answers that it takes time to understand. No one reading can tell you everything, and rushing through it won't help you understand the deep wisdom that has been passed down through generations of devotion. Think about how calm and patient you can become by studying, meditating, and reflecting on the sacred text over and over again. Each time you do this, you gain more insight and feel more connected to the divine. Divine knowledge also reflects the soul. When someone studies sacred teachings, their heart learns about its own patterns, limits, and possibilities. Picture a soft revelation coming to you as you meditate on a sacred syllable or a secret message, a quiet understanding of your own habits, feelings, or intentions, brought to light by centuries of preserved wisdom. The texts help people learn about the world and the divine, but they also help them learn about themselves through self-discovery, reflection, and growth. This awakening is very personal, but it also fits with the rhythm of all people. Each seeker touches a thread of knowledge that dedicated guardians have kept safe. This connects them to the work of monks, scribes, and spiritual teachers who have kept the texts safe for hundreds of years. Picture this subtle continuity, the pulse of divine intention flowing from generations of devoted hearts into your own moment of reflection, quietly shaping understanding and deepening spiritual insight. Even small insights can have a big impact on your life. A gentle understanding of patience, compassion, or reverence, gained through meticulous examination of sacred texts, can impact daily decisions, interactions, and viewpoints. Think about how you would feel if you woke up every day with the gentle awareness that comes from centuries of sacred preservation, acting with thoughtfulness, speaking with care, and living with quiet devotion. The hidden effects of divine knowledge don't force people to do things. They change the heart over time in a subtle, constant way. The Ethiopian Bible, with its restored names, hidden messages, and carefully preserved teachings, becomes a living guide for this spiritual journey. Every reading, every meditation, and every thought has the power to wake up the spirit and shed light on what you already know. Imagine the soft light of the candle falling on your hands as you turn the pages of a holy book. You can feel the rhythm of God's will, sense the quiet presence of guidance, and let your heart naturally reflect on what you're reading. The gentle power of divine knowledge continues to be felt as night falls. Spiritual awakening isn't about big visions or sudden insights. It's about a quiet alignment and an inner shift that helps you become more clear, patient, and devoted. Picture the calm feeling of being gently led, the heart opening to deeper understanding, and the mind settling into the rhythm of wisdom that has been passed down through the ages. In the quiet rhythms of everyday life, divine guidance gently weaves its influence, subtly shaping decisions, actions, and moral understanding. Picture a soft morning light coming through the windows of an old Ethiopian monastery and lighting up the monks as they go about their daily routines. The wisdom found in sacred texts, the restored names, the hidden messages, and the subtle guidance of hundreds of years affects every gesture and choice. Divine guidance does not force you to do anything. It whispers, nudges, and invites you to think about it. When a choice comes up, big or small, a heart that is paying attention may feel a quiet pull, an inner alignment that points toward honesty, humility, compassion, or patience. Picture a monk getting ready for his day. He stops for a moment when a soft thought comes to mind, reminding him to be kind to others, to think before he speaks, and to take care of his duties. This is how sacred knowledge quietly affects our daily lives. Every choice, when made with this awareness, shows how moral you are. Divine knowledge that has been passed down through the ages gives us a framework, not strict rules. It helps people make decisions by helping them see the best way to go in complicated situations. Imagine a regular person reading a restored name or thinking about a holy message from the Ethiopian Bible. They are quietly thinking about how it relates to what they do, whether to be kind, forgive, or choose honesty over convenience. Every choice becomes a meditation, a way to put into practice the wisdom that has been passed down through the years. Divine guidance has an effect on more than just conscious thought. It affects feelings, instincts, and gut feelings. Picture yourself walking through a busy market, your mind clear but calm, knowing when to speak, when to be quiet, and how to be fair. Over time, the lessons in sacred texts that people don't notice at first start to change who they are and how they act. Like soft rain that helps a hidden seed grow, guidance slowly builds moral understanding and makes actions fit with deeper truth. This way of making daily decisions is also a kind of inner training. The mind learns to tell the difference between right and wrong, subtlety and impulsivity, and patience and haste by carefully observing, thinking about, and meditating on sacred texts. Imagine a peaceful evening in a monastery where a monk is going over his day, thinking about the choices he made and feeling the gentle echo of divine instruction guiding his thoughts toward clarity, responsibility, and understanding. In this way, moral awareness grows slowly, like each day adding a small but important thread to the fabric of a virtuous life. Even small actions that are guided by God can have a big impact. A kind word, a gentle action, or a patient response echoes not only in the present, but also throughout the unseen web of influence that links human hearts across time. Think of a small act of kindness that comes from an inner awareness, that comes from meditating on sacred names. This simple, quiet act has a ripple effect on morality, linking one's life to the flow of wisdom that has lasted for centuries. Divine guidance also makes you think about your intentions. It teaches that choices are not only based on results, but also on how well your heart, mind, and actions line up with sacred principles. Think about a person reading the Ethiopian Bible and slowly tracing a restored name, stopping to think about the hidden meaning of each syllable. That thought affects intention, and intention affects action, creating a never-ending circle of moral awareness that is gently guided by preserved wisdom. This guidance also helps people be strong when they face moral problems. There are times in life when you doubt, fight, and don't know what to do. Sacred knowledge has a quiet effect that acts like a steady, subtle compass. Picture yourself having to make a tough choice, with doubt weighing on your mind. But as you think about divine names and hidden messages, you feel a soft inner resonance that brings you clarity, courage, and patience. It is in these small moments that guidance has the biggest effect on character, making sure that moral understanding is tested, improved, and made stronger. The Ethiopian Bible, with its layers of hidden wisdom, restored names, and preserved teachings, serves as a living guide for developing moral awareness. Every interaction, every thought, and every meditation helps us understand things better, makes us more discerning, and helps us make choices that are in line with the eternal pulse of divine intention. Imagine the calm assurance that comes from knowing that even in the smallest daily choices, guidance is always there, quietly shaping your moral understanding and helping you live a life that is wise, patient, and kind. As night falls, let this soft feeling settle in your heart. Divine guidance comes through small signs, quiet thinking, and paying close attention to sacred knowledge. Daily decisions, influenced by this guidance, manifest as expressions of moral comprehension, serving as a living testament to the timeless wisdom preserved through the ages. Picture the soft rhythm of awareness guiding every step, word, and action, bringing you closer to truth, harmony, and the gentle presence of divine intention. Candlelight softly dances on old walls, and a quiet tension builds between free will and divine influence. Picture a monk sitting cross-legged with a scroll in his hand, breathing slowly, and feeling the soft pulse of wisdom that has been passed down through the ages. In this peaceful, reflective space, the seeker starts to feel the delicate balance between the quiet guidance that comes from sacred texts and the restored names and the freedom to act, choose, and shape their own path. Divine influence is soft, like the sound of wind blowing through trees. It doesn't force, push, or demand. Instead, it suggests, sheds light on, and invites thought. Picture a young person who is trying to decide whether to speak softly or stay quiet, or whether to forgive or hold on to their anger. Sacred texts contain hidden wisdom that doesn't tell you what to do, but rather gives you subtle hints, resonances, and insights that guide you without taking away your freedom. This is the subtle art of divine guidance. But free will is still very important. Every human heart has the ability to accept, resist, or give new meaning to divine nudges. Picture yourself tracing a holy name, feeling the vibration of your intention, but stopping to think about your own wants, fears, and conscience. You still have the choice, and it is in this back and forth that real moral understanding grows. Divine guidance is like a soft light on the path, but the seeker must take the steps themselves. The balance is hard to find because too much awareness of guidance can be too much, and too little can make the seeker feel lost. The Ethiopian way of life teaches people to be patient, think about things, and be in tune with them. Picture a candle burning low, with the light flickering and making soft shadows on the scrolls. Every moment of quiet observation is a chance to practice discernment. You learn when to act, when to think, and when to just stay still, letting your heart slowly align with higher wisdom. Over time, subtle influences change how people understand things. Every time you read sacred texts, think about restored names, or think about hidden messages, your moral judgment gets stronger without being forced. Imagine a peaceful morning, the soft rustling of pages, and a person slowly realizing that the text has patterns that remind them of their own life. Divine guidance is like an invisible hand that gently aligns intention with truth while still respecting the freedom to choose. This balance also helps people be humble. The seeker learns that wisdom isn't just about following rules, it's also about using divine insight in their own life. Think about a story about a prophet or a sacred name. Feel its subtle pulse and realize that guidance and personal choice can exist at the same time. One shows you the way, and the other moves forward with purpose. The heart learns patience, self-awareness, and respect through this coexistence. Even errors are a part of this fragile dance, Free will allows for mistakes, and divine guidance often works through these mistakes, helping people understand by making them think and learn. Picture a soft moment of regret after making a quick choice, followed by a quiet moment of thinking about sacred wisdom. The lessons learned echo in the mind and heart, gently teaching patience, discernment, and how to follow the rules that are in the texts. In this way, divine influence respects human choice while gently encouraging growth. The Ethiopian Bible, with its secret messages, restored names, and carefully kept teachings, is a good example of this balance. Its wisdom flows quietly, guiding without taking over, keeping freedom while making things clearer. Picture a seeker slowly tracing letters, thinking about subtle patterns, and feeling the gentle rhythm of divine intention and personal choice coming together. Every reading is a conversation between the human heart and divine wisdom that unfolds slowly, carefully, and with respect. In this quiet dance between free will and divine influence, our moral understanding grows, our choices are guided by wisdom, and our hearts slowly learn to listen to subtle guidance. Think about how peaceful it is to realize this interaction, the gentle comfort that help is always there, but that each step is still a personal journey. This is the quiet beauty of sacred knowledge, which has been passed down through the ages and guides without forcing, and teaches without commanding. In the quiet rooms of Ethiopian monasteries, sacred names have a quiet power, like invisible threads that connect human hearts to divine will. Think of a single name whispered softly in the stillness of dawn, with the syllables vibrating gently in the air and touching not only the mind, but also the deepest parts of the soul. These names, which have been carefully restored and kept safe for hundreds of years, have both subtle and profound effects on fate and spiritual alignment. Sacred names are more than just names. They are ways to connect, vibrate, and understand. Each one has divine qualities, spiritual wisdom, and historical significance. Picture a monk writing a name with reverent fingers, feeling the rhythm of the letters and sensing a gentle alignment in his heart. This alignment is not forceful. It is a quiet harmonization of intention, character, and awareness that gently leads thought and action towards spiritual resonance. The effect of holy names on fate is subtle but long-lasting. Think about how a life is shaped by all the little things that happen every day, like choices, thoughts, and small decisions. When a sacred name is understood, thought about, or called upon with respect, it becomes a quiet guide. Picture a young seeker stopping for a moment of doubt, remembering a name that has been restored, and feeling a soft, guiding resonance that lights the way ahead. This is how spiritual alignment gently shapes your destiny. Names also connect what people know with what angels know. Names in Ethiopian culture are often coded, full of meaning, and closely connected to divine knowledge. Picture reading a part where one name has echoes of teaching, moral insight, and divine rhythm. These small hints make people think, help them be patient, and help them understand better how free will and higher guidance work together. It takes time for spiritual alignment through sacred names to happen. It happens over time through meditation, reflection, and consistent devotion. Picture the soft repetition of a name at dawn, with each time making you more aware, opening your heart, and tuning your mind to the rhythm of God's will. These gentle interactions build up over time to create a resonance that affects moral understanding, emotional stability, and spiritual clarity. This guides choices and character in ways that become clear over time, but are still very deep. The mere presence of a name can have an effect. During times of reflection, remembrance, or prayer, a sacred name can help you focus your thoughts, strengthen your connection to divine principles, and keep you in line with them. Picture yourself sitting still, with the soft pulse of your breath echoing the name you remember. This brings you back to a calm and clear state of mind. In this quiet resonance, destiny is gently shaped, bringing the seeker's path into line with higher wisdom. Sacred names also protect people by gently leading them away from mistakes and moral confusion. When you think about them carefully, They remind your heart and mind of the divine rhythm, which makes you think before you act and wait before you decide. Picture a tough situation in everyday life where a whispered memory of a name brings about calm, careful thought, and the right choice comes to mind. This is the unseen guidance that has been passed down through generations of sacred knowledge. The Ethiopian Bible, which has been restored and has hidden names, becomes a living tool for this spiritual alignment. Every time we meditate, study, or pray, we strengthen the link between our hearts and God's will. Picture the soft light of candles lighting up pages full of names. Each name is like a quiet pulse, a rhythm that brings together thought, intention, and action across time and space. The subtle power of holy names goes beyond what happens to one person. It spreads through communities, generations, and even whole cultures, changing how people think and feel about moral and spiritual issues. Picture the peaceful hum of a monastery where names are called, read, and kept every day. Each syllable adds to a steady rhythm of guidance that helps people become more virtuous, insightful, and devoted. Let this quiet thought settle gently within you as the night goes on. Sacred names, which have been carefully restored and preserved over the years, have a subtle power that brings thought, intention, and action into line with divine wisdom. Picture how the sound of these names gently guides choices, shapes destiny, and brings the heart into harmony with deeper understanding. The pulse of divine intention goes on, quiet but deep, touching every heart that is paying attention and helping them become spiritually clear, morally clear, and aligned with their true selves. The names of God that have been restored will live on for a long time. Picture the soft light of morning sun shining on carefully kept scrolls, with the names written with care. Each name is a pulse of divine intention that has been flowing through time. These names are more than just words. They are bridges that connect the past, present, and future. They connect generations in a constant flow of guidance, wisdom, and devotion. To start a legacy, you have to take care of it. Every scribe, monk, and dedicated guardian knew that the names they brought back had deep meaning, spiritual power, and moral lessons. Picture a scribe, bent over a piece of parchment, the quill moving slowly and deliberately. Each stroke is a prayer, a conscious way to protect sacred knowledge. These names were carefully restored after being changed or lost in translation, so that future generations would get the intended meaning and direction. This legacy is also a living link. Every name that has been restored makes you think, meditate, and get in touch with your spiritual side. Picture a child in a monastery sitting quietly next to an older person, listening to the pronunciation of a holy name and feeling its subtle vibration. That little moment becomes a link in a chain of understanding that lasts for hundreds of years and leads the heart to moral and spiritual awareness. The legacy is not just written down, it lives on in the hearts of those who pay attention. These names have shaped how people think, act, and make decisions over the years. Picture a line of monks, each one following the faint pulse of a restored name and making decisions based on centuries of wisdom that has been kept safe. The overall effect is deep. Communities that are shaped by subtle guidance and people whose moral and spiritual growth is supported by careful alignment with divine intention. This lasting legacy shows how sacred knowledge can quietly shape human experience. Restored names also keep the rhythm of divine guidance. Scribes and guardians kept the subtle vibrational resonance that was in each syllable by making sure it was correct, clear, and respectful. Think about how you feel when you hear a name softly spoken during prayer. You might feel like you're in sync with divine order, and you might feel a gentle pull toward patience, compassion, and insight. This rhythm goes on through the years, quietly affecting hearts, guiding actions, and building understanding without force or demand. The legacy also has a moral side. Restoring and protecting divine names makes sure that sacred knowledge continues to be a source of moral guidance. Picture a young monk who is trying to make a tough choice, remembering a name that has been restored and feeling clear and brave. These names still have a moral and spiritual effect that ripples out, shaping choices, reinforcing good character traits, and quietly teaching lessons about honesty, patience, and humility. This is guidance that is not just words, but a living, lasting echo. Also, the legacy of restored names goes beyond the walls of the monastery. People in communities, scholars, and regular people all come across these names through study, reflection, and worship. Picture a village where the soft hum of chanting can be heard, and each name has a subtle meaning that helps everyone understand and feel a sense of devotion and moral awareness. Through careful preservation, divine names affect not only individual hearts, but also the fabric of whole communities, creating a rhythm of guidance that lasts through time. The effect is still there today. Names that have been restored and preserved over the years still make people think, meditate, and align their spirits. Imagine opening a well-bound Ethiopian Bible, tracing a name with care, and feeling a connection that goes back hundreds of years of devoted care. That connection is the lasting legacy, a living thread of divine guidance that quietly and persistently shapes thought, action, and spiritual awareness. The fact that these names have lasted so long shows how dedicated, patient, and respectful they are. Generations of scribes, monks, and seekers made sure that divine guidance would not be lost, that the pulse of sacred wisdom would keep going, and that anyone who was paying attention could feel its subtle effects. Imagine how calm it would be to know that moral insight, spiritual alignment, and guidance are always available to anyone who comes with patience, respect, and thought. As the night goes on, let the lasting legacy of the restored divine names settle softly in your heart. Every syllable, kept and respected, keeps guiding, lighting, and aligning. Picture the quiet pulse of centuries flowing through the names, shaping hearts, guiding choices, and deepening spiritual understanding. This legacy is timeless, patient, and lasting. It shows that devotion, care, and respect can pass on wisdom from one generation to the next, gently changing the course of every soul that pays attention. Picture yourself in an Ethiopian monastery where centuries of prayer, devotion, and sacred knowledge have been preserved in a peaceful, quiet place. The restored names, hidden messages, and centuries of careful preservation all come together in a gentle rhythm. This rhythm speaks to the ultimate purpose of divine wisdom in human life. This wisdom is not meant to control or overwhelm you. It is meant to help you see, guide, and grow your heart, mind, and spirit. Divine wisdom wants to make people more aware. Picture yourself tracing a holy name, feeling its subtle vibration, and feeling a quiet alignment within yourself. The goal is not just to learn for the sake of learning, but also to change, to lead the heart toward patience, the mind toward clarity, and the spirit toward understanding. Every restored name and hidden lesson in the Ethiopian Bible was meant to be kept safe. Wisdom is like a soft teacher that shows itself slowly and patiently in a way that fits with how ready people are. The realization of this wisdom is evident in its influence on daily existence. Choices, actions, and thoughts are shaped by quiet guidance, not by force. Picture the soft light of dawn shining on your thoughts, with each choice shaped by the gentle pulse of knowledge that has been around for hundreds of years. Wisdom fosters moral comprehension, cultivates empathy, and inspires integrity. Every action, regardless of its magnitude, serves as a manifestation of conformity with divine direction. Another goal is to grow spiritually. Divine wisdom does not only teach, it also wakes people up, nurtures them, and brings them together. Picture a monk meditating peacefully at dusk, with his eyes closed and his breath steady. He feels the resonance of a restored name deep in his heart. Every time you think about something, you strengthen the link between human consciousness and higher intention, which leads to insight, humility, and inner peace. So, wisdom doesn't do its job by being grand. It does it by slowly and quietly shaping the soul. Divine purpose is based on legacy and continuity. Wisdom lasts forever thanks to the careful work of scribes, guardians, and dedicated seekers. Picture a young apprentice tracing the quiet rhythm of a scroll, his hand echoing centuries of devotion. Every generation gets not only words but also intentions. These intentions are like a living thread that connects the past, present, and future into a flow of guidance, reflection, and insight that lasts. The satisfaction comes from this continuity, where human life slowly falls into line with divine rhythm. God's wisdom also teaches how to balance free will and guidance. Every decision made while being influenced by preserved knowledge makes moral judgment and spiritual alignment stronger. Think about how a quiet decision in everyday life can be based on thinking about a restored name or a secret lesson. These small acts of careful choice show how divine guidance and human agency work together to build integrity, understanding, and alignment with purpose. The ultimate goal is also about relationships. Wisdom links people's hearts together, which leads to compassion, empathy, and moral awareness. Picture communities that have been shaped by generations of preserved knowledge, where each person has been subtly guided, creating a collective resonance of moral and spiritual harmony. Divine wisdom is not solitary. It fosters human connection, imparting patience, understanding, and kindness, ripple by ripple, heart by heart. One can feel that peace is the end of divine wisdom when the night is calm. Peace of mind, peace of heart, and peace of soul. Picture yourself lying still, feeling the pulse of centuries of preserved knowledge, the quiet echo of restored names, and the gentle alignment of thought, intention, and action. Wisdom serves its purpose by bringing calm harmony, showing that true understanding is gentle, patient, and long-lasting. As this story comes to a peaceful end, let the lessons sink in. Divine wisdom, which has been carefully preserved, reverently restored, and passed down through the generations, still guides, nurtures, and lights the way. It determines fate, guides moral decisions, awakens the spirit, and aligns human existence with a greater purpose. Picture this soft rhythm moving through your thoughts, bringing your heart in line with the pulse of sacred knowledge and filling your mind with peace, reflection, and clarity. The Ethiopian Bible's journey, its restored names, and the sacred wisdom it holds all come together in human life. Every careful preservation, every subtle lesson, and every quiet moment of thought come together to guide, inspire, and bring things together. Let yourself relax in this knowledge, feeling the gentle, constant influence of divine wisdom and carrying its calm, lasting presence in your heart, mind, and spirit as you drift off to sleep.